And queen takes f3. Oh, what is going on? Oh, this is going to be a fortress. I just don't see any hopes at all. This is very easy. Just rook back and forth.
Taking chess to the next level.
Wow. Wow.
Wow, yeah. Nothing else to say. Wow.
Creating the future of the sport. Introducing the Champions Chess Tour. 10 months, 10 tournaments. The world's best players online and on TV.
All right, welcome everyone. We're just going to get started in a second for some Banter Blitz. Should be fun. Yeah, let me just find a challenge to accept, and we will get underway. We're going to have a Q&A for the last 30 minutes as well, so let me just hang on half a second here, make sure I have the formatting right. Okay, so let's see who we have in store. Looks like, let's start with, who is first here? What is this? Hard to see. Challenges. All right, let's play with GMDER. This is a 3-minute game, which is a bit fast for me, but let's give it a try. So I will play D4 because this is what I'm doing in my chessable repertoire, which I will shamelessly spam in the chat. I've been playing D4 a bit. I just played D4 in the Champions Tour with some success. I won a nice game against Vidit. I got good position against Iranian. So I'm going to see if I can play something similar here. All right, so Queen E7. I don't remember off the top of my head. That's pretty bad, but I think I was supposed to start with E3. Yeah, no, this is right. We're supposed to start with E3, and then if I'm not wrong, we go Bishop D3 here. And the point is that at some point I want to play Knight C3, and this is the right moment for it, because we should be waiting until Black cannot take on C3 and then play Knight E4. And if I'm able to castle next, I think White should be better. So here Black wants to play E5. I could, for example, play A3, which would discourage him from doing so. Seems reasonably sensible. But yeah, so let's try A3. This takes the bishop pair. In the event of bishop c3 and bishop c3, he will no longer be able to play e5, at least not right away. He can go knight bd7, castle, and then e5, but I should be ready with e4. Okay, so a5 I think is way too slow and completely not in the spirit of the position. If white is allowed to play e4 next, which I'm about to do, I should just be clearly better with my big center. So I'm going to overprotect it. Seems easy enough. And this is the kind of position you're sort of aiming for in this course. It's you get a nice big center. You're not going to tear Black's head off right away, but it's I think it's pretty reasonable for White. And Black's position just feels very difficult to play. It's hard to even suggest a decent move. All right, so let's start with b3, keep everything nice and solid. Next up, I will play queen d2, getting ready to attack the a5 pawn and provoke more weaknesses, centralize the other rook, and I think Black is much worse here. At some point, I can also consider c5. I don't think I want to do it just yet, but stranger things could happen. So queen d2, again, nice and simple, straightforward, centralize the rooks before anything else. He does the same, fair enough, but his queen is sort of awkward. It always takes a bit of effort to break through in these positions, but this one should be doable. King h8, sure, let's get the queen out of dodge, and I might be ready for c5 next. Okay, so he's clearly just out of ideas if he's sitting and waiting. C5 is possible, but BC, D5, D5 is not as, yeah, I think c5 is good. So we go c5, and now if he takes with the b pawn, I can go d5 and then take on a5 when he will be left with a very bad structure, and I've opened the position to the bishops, for the bishops to some degree. So this just looks extremely unpleasant for Black. Right, so he takes d4, but this should fall apart pretty fast, I think. So cd6, and now after I take d4 next, something should fall. So I think taking with the bishop makes the most sense. This is the most forceful way to get e5 through. And funnily enough, sort of out of nowhere, black can just get made if I go like e5, bishop b1, and queen c2. Like, it's very easy for black to just get himself checkmated in like 3 more moves here. So yeah, let's go e5, and I have a feeling this should mate pretty soon. If knight d5, I can even consider e6. All right, so I guess it's not actually that straightforward. E6 is extremely tempting because I don't really want to let him blockade. But let's be a bit more calm. I'm going to start with bishop e4, and he just cannot move. This stops c5, and now black is really hurting for moves. So he tries rook c8, but now bishop f5, and the twin threats of e6 and bishop takes d7 should be basically decisive. This rook on c8 is badly misplaced. All right, so I guess we should. Knight f8's a good move. All right, I'm gonna go bishop back to b2. I probably could have been much more incisive here, but I also think I'm basically winning, so I'm not wildly concerned. It's knight h2. Get this knight ready to go to g4. And as I said here, sort of out of nowhere, black can just get himself checkmated in like 3 more moves. I mean, knight takes h6 is not messing around. So let's go start with rook d6 so that he can barely move. And before long, I'm going to sacrifice on h6, and this should be crushing. There, sure. Okay, so here. And I could have taken b6 as well. My only concern is I'm just going to lose on time. I'm not good at this whole flagging thing. Yeah, so strategically, white is absolutely winning here, but I have to be careful not to lose on time. So for example, here, queen h6 is coming. So he does that, and now I'm just going to win slowly with bishop f6. So yeah, bishop f6 comes, and I win a piece, and that's the game. Now he might try to flag me here, but you know, the interesting part of this game is over. Let's put it that way. So here, and I think with this kind of time advantage, even I should manage not to lose on time, but you never know. See if I should take. All right, so I managed to not get flagged there, and I think win a pretty clean game, so it's a good start. Let's see, who's next? Have blunderpand. I think I may have played with you before, but all right, what do we got? So let's keep playing d4. And let's see if I can cause any trouble with this chessable repertoire. All right, so still following along with how I wanted. And I gave this sort of funky move bishop e2, which I think is kind of clever. dc4 I don't think is great because of a4. That's one trick of bishop e2, is that if my bishop were on d3, he would have to take directly, and then on c4. He would have to be taking directly on c4, and here I have the option to wait, and for example, I can make use of that option very nicely with this move knight d2, which is actually very annoying for black to deal with, because he doesn't really want me to take with the knight on c4. So I take, and now if bishop c7, he should probably play bishop c7. And here I believe it's actually important to start with b3 before castle. So here bishop a3 comes, and the point is, yeah, so rook e8, and now castle back. And this position I think is quite unpleasant for black. The point of playing bishop a3 first was black was not in time to go knight b6, trade the queens, and get the rook to the d8 square. Because here if he goes knight b6 or knight e5, I got bishop a3 with tempo, which means I will go knight d6 and take one of his bishops. And so white should be clearly better here. This is all following the chessable repertoire. So far, so good. All right, so he decides to part with this bishop, which is probably the best decision, but I still think black's position is extremely difficult here. He will not be able to challenge the bishop pair in any meaningful way. Right, so he starts with bishop e6. I suppose that's logical enough. I guess I could play a5 here. I could play b4. If b4, maybe bishop c4 is annoying, though. Let's start with a5. If he goes knight d5, my bishop will sit quite well on the e5 square. So the bishop on e5 is quite nice and active. And I have a very healthy pair of bishops here. I mean, black is still reasonably solid, but the bishops should count for something. Yeah, so I guess I'll go queen b2, which sort of encourages black to play f6, which is something I think he's probably not thrilled about. Maybe queen d4 was, yeah, I'm starting to think queen d4 was the better move, but the queen is a little passive on b2. But I still think white is just pleasantly better here. I think he really has to play f6. He's probably not happy about it, but he's got to do it. And then I should put the bishop back on g3. Yeah, so here, black's not that much worse. I mean, the bishop pair is very nice. It's not like he's dropping material immediately or anything, but I do think that white's position is much more fun, practically. I'm ready with rook d1 and e4, and this seems quite uncomfortable for black. So he starts with queen e7, and this is the kind of position where I'm realizing my queen would be much better on d4, because I could, for example, play e4 and meet knight b4 with bishop d6, but I think I'm still clearly better. So I'm just debating how I want to proceed. I think rook fd1 is nice and solid and easy enough. Queen f7 I wasn't expecting. I thought he was going to play rook d8. So if I go e4 here, and then knight b4, rook d4, I think, or bishop d6, this knight is nearly trapped, so this looks very tempting. Let's start with e4. And after knight b4, I could go queen c3. I can go bishop d6. The knight is not particularly safe, and so I think this looks very bad for black now. I like queen c3 the best, but he should have played rook d8, when I do think he's worse, but the game is a bit more double-edged. Here, it looks like black's knight is going to end up on a6, which is a very sad square. Okay, so he goes to e7 instead, but I find that entirely unimpressive as well. So he's sort of threatening b3. I don't know how much I care. Let's double rooks on the open file. It sort of restricts my bishop to do that, but I don't think it's a huge issue. All right, so rook d1. And this position is very difficult for black. I'm starting to think about direct ways to cause problems now. I think there's a move. I think you should probably play f5 here just to fight for the d5 square, but I don't think it will solve his problems. So knight c8. Sure. I don't really get the point, so I'm going to just play a move and gain space for my king, make sure I don't get myself mated on the back rank. I don't understand knight c8, what he's trying to do there. Queen e7, sure. So I guess queen c3 seems to restrict the queen pretty nicely. And at some point I might start attacking him. Like if he goes queen a3, for example, I think I'm probably going to throw e5. All right, so he doesn't want that. Let's go rook e3 and prepare for e5 next. If knight d6, I have bishop d3, and he cannot stop e5. Yeah, once e5 comes, it's going to be very dangerous for black's king. So let's go e5. And bishop takes e5, and I think black is very likely to get checkmated here. The bishops are just too strong. So that, I guess his idea is to play knight d5. Do I care? Bishop g7, knight d5, rook e8, bishop e8, and that's an issue. If I start with bishop g4, where does this queen go? That looks like a good move. Let's play it. Yeah, so now the point is that his queen is booted away, and in the event of something like queen e8, then I should be able to take on g7, because after knight d5, I will be able to play rook takes e8. So yeah, here I think I can take g7. I don't see why not. So let's do it. And that's a pawn around his king, which should be easily enough to win the game. Yeah, so there, let's go bishop h6, and now I'm threatening mate on g7, which I don't believe he's going to stop very easily. So now f4, and if I'm not missing something, that's the end of that. Maybe he can try queen d6. He does, but I won't save him. So what is the best way through here? Let's just be boring. I'm going to take with the rook, take with the queen. I was thinking about playing f takes e5 and trying to mate him, but this, I think, is just incredibly straightforward. I can stick the queen on this nice centralized square, and I play b4, and his queenside pawn majority is absolutely useless, while conversely, my center pawns around the king should just win pretty quickly. So let's start with king h2, and I'm ready for like bishop f5 next. And so I guess in theory he's ready to take some stuff. Let's start with a check, and then yeah. So I think an endgame is absolutely winning, but let's be a bit more direct. So check, and now I want to do this. Let's go like queen. It's actually a little annoying. Let's play queen c7. h5, sure. Bishop f3. Queen f5, and now let's just go king g3, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I probably could have won that more easily at the end, but the win was never in doubt. All right, so let's see who wants to play. Let's play with carius. Oh, okay, so I get black. Let's see what this guy wants. All right, so I've been playing the Rouser in the Champions Tour and other events, so let's do some more of that. But it looks like he doesn't want to play into the Open Sicilian, which is rather a shame because that's more fun. So he goes for this Grand Prix attack, but without a white squared bishop, I struggle to imagine black will have any trouble holding things together. I guess if e6 here, he can play f5, which is a bit problematic, but if I just go knight f6, I can't imagine this is particularly dangerous for me. This bishop on g7 is very good. Yeah, so he plays h3. I'm just going to castle. I'm rather unintimidated by any threats to my king. So bishop e3, sure. I guess that explains why he played h3, but let's just make an extremely subtle move, rook b8, with the very, very subtle point of playing b5 and gaining queenside space. So b5, I have to say, these Grand Prix attacks are exceptionally boring. It's kind of frustrating to play against because you're looking for fighting chess and you don't really get it. So I sort of get why white does it, but I would never condone playing this way. But nonetheless, here I still kind of like my position. I'm ready for b4 next. I don't think he's doing anything on the open A file. All right, so b4. And let's go rook a8 and start to invade. It always feels like black has an easier time breaking through in these positions than white does. But yeah, okay, so g4 is the move of a man who does not like his position. How do I want to handle this? Sort of tempted to play c4 and open things up a bit, but c4, g5 is not so clear. Maybe I can just go rook a1. I guess with g4 he wants to play f5 though, so I should be at least a little bit careful. Maybe I need to be somewhat direct. Let's try c4. I'm not sure this is best, but it will at least complicate the game. If f5, I can even play b3 and start to make things very messy, which I think black should be doing here. Because eventually, like bishop h6 and stuff will mate me, but I think it will just take way too long, and I'm going to cause way too much damage in the meantime. So there's knight takes e4. That's one pawn back. So material is now equal. But after queen d3 or whatever, cb2, it's not so clear. All right. So here, queen looks kind of vulnerable there, but let's just start with, like, I guess we can start with taking there and knight c5, and I'm ready for knight b4 and knight d3. And I just don't believe white's going to mate me in a position like this one. I mean, maybe I'm underestimating the attacking potential, but like with this bishop on g7, it's sort of hard to believe white can just go crush me. All right, so knight c3, let's bring this rook to b8. If knight d5, I believe I have knight b4. So he plays knight b5 instead, sure. Let's go rook a2. D1, okay, it's a bit annoying. Let's just go knight d4 and change the nature of the game. I'm ready to sacrifice an exchange here on b5 if given the opportunity. So if he plays king h1 or something, that one I thought I could take on b2. But if he had played king h1, I may well have taken on b5 and sacked the exchange when I would have already get one pawn, the b2 pawn would come next, and white's king is in tatters. Yeah, so here I think that this knight d4 lost on the spot, but rook takes b5 was coming. Yeah, so this should be routinely winning for me, I think. Unless I've blundered something. Nah, now it's messy again. All right, so I have to take this rook and take the knight. Yeah, I think I've actually screwed this up to a degree, but maybe I'll still win. Rook d7, sure. Yeah, he's probably saving this now. I haven't played this particularly well, but it's still not that easy for white because his king is completely cut off and mine is better, and my e-pawn is very fast. So like here, e4, for example, and I think I might actually just win this position. So let's say I go rook c2, and now king e5. At some point, he's just going to end up in z1. Like here, what is your move? It's very hard for white to actually move. So he does this, but now my e-pawn should win the game, I think. So here, actually maybe not, rook f5, and he's just in time. Oh, whoa, I have no time. Okay, I gotta speed things up. But this e-pawn is very good. Back here. And e6, kick this rook, make it choose a direction. No, but I've misplayed this very badly. Check, and now it's rook f1. Okay, so I won this game basically by luck more than anything else. At some point, he should have been okay there. I missed this knight e6 trick, which was very nice. That kept him in the game when I thought it was over. So let's see who else wants to play. Podsol, let's play with you. Good luck. Let's have some fun. You have 5 seconds to move before I play somebody else. 4. Okay, you got there. So yeah, I'm gonna play the Rouser like I've been playing in the Champions Tour. Supposed to, well, okay, I guess not. I'm supposed to do a trustable course on it pretty soon, but there should be 5 check bishop d3. This I don't understand, so I'm gonna just keep developing like normal. And let's say, I don't get the point. Let's just go knight c6. I was thinking maybe like e5, but probably should play it. All right, let's go e5 and not let him take the whole center with d4. I don't know. Maybe the bishop on d7 is not any better than it would be on c8. Okay, so h3, he clearly wants to play d4 next, but I don't think I necessarily care that much. But let's just play rook c8 just as prophylaxis. This means he will not play d4 so easily. I don't know. I mean, these positions are pretty dull, but I kind of like the big center. Okay, so he goes d4 anyway. He doesn't believe me. Fair enough. But I think he may end up regretting that. So ed4, and now it's not like this extra pawn on d4 is that glorious for me, but it really messes with his coordination because he doesn't really want to go knight bd2. I guess he can play knight a3, but it sort of feels underwhelming. For example, after knight a3, castle, knight takes d4. If like knight d4, queen d4, it's pretty obvious that the knight on a3 is just on a bad square. So I kind of like my position here. So he does this. I don't think I can save my pawn, but if he takes on d4, like his knight just ends up such a bad piece on a3 that. So he plays rook e1. I'm not sure I grasp why. What if I play? Actually, he may want to play knight b5 next and then take on d4 with the knight. That actually makes some sense. So if I play queen b6, knight c4, queen a6, and bishop d3 and knight b4, messy. Let's just be calm and play rook e8. It's probably not a great move, but it's fine. Should have four, sure. So I guess he wants to threaten my d6 pawn in some way. I don't want to deal with that. Maybe I can try knight e5. Kind of like it. This changes the nature of the game, but in a way that I think works in my favor. So if he plays knight e5, d e5, bishop e5, I will go bishop a3, bishop f6, ba3, and normally the structure would be good for white, but I think the weakness of the c3 square means I will be able to play rook c3 next with a pretty good position. I don't know, this may have just been dumb. He can go knight takes d4 here, but then I can like play g6 or something, and it's very clear this knight on a3 is just egregiously misplaced. I'm just sort of hoping that that will count in the end. Okay, so he does take there. Let's go g6 and keep his knight at bay. This kind of position, I think white would be clearly better if the a3 knight were on c3, but it's not, and so that messes with his coordination quite a lot. All right, so knight f3, and this seems like it's sort of begging for some kind of problem, but I don't see a great way to punish him right away. Let's... No, it's not great either. This. Well, I see some interesting options, but none that look amazing. I'm just gonna burn my time and lose the game, maybe. I guess we want in doubt be solid. I can tuck back with bishop f8, pretty comfortable position. So he goes for bishop b3. And here, it's actually a bit annoying. I guess I have to take f3 and play bishop e6 to not let that bishop become too powerful. But again, this position, like, I would be in massive trouble if this knight on a3 were on a better square. But because it's not, I think I'm actually pretty safe. Like if this knight were on c3 and he could go bishop g5, bishop g7, knight d5, I'd basically just be crushed. But I think this knight is just going to be a constant problem for white. So yeah, now I can take this one, and d5 is going to, e4 is hanging. So I'm going to go take e4 and ask him to show me the compensation. Again, highlighting this knight on a3 was not on c3 to come take back. Okay, so now I get to go d5, and now my bishop will spring to life as well. It's still a little bit annoying because I have some weaknesses around my king. It's not like over yet, but it feels like black should be in control here. Knight takes f7 doesn't work. So he goes knight g4. I guess we can go h5, kick the knight once more. So he gives me a check, g7. And I don't believe knight f7 works. Okay, so he tries that, but rook f6 should be the end, I think. His knight is going to be trapped, and I'm crashing through on f2, and this is all falling apart. Yeah, so good. Podsol is playing pretty well, but I think I've got this one. So he takes with the queen, and now the easiest is queen b6, forcing the queens off the board when his knight will be trapped at the end. Yeah, I don't know. I never enjoy these positions as much as the Open Sicilian ones, but this was an interesting game. It certainly got messy at some point. I think he may have had an advantage sometime around when I played knight e5. But yeah, now white is disconnecting. Thanks for the game. Okay, thank you. Good game, Podsol. Thank you for playing. Let's see who else wants to play. Let's play with Nicotic. Black again, all good. Any opening requests, guys, or should I just play whatever? Here I'm just going to keep playing the Rouser until somebody plays an Open Sicilian with me. All right, good on you, Nicotic. I like that you're a fighting player. Play the Open Sicilian. Yeah, so I'm just going to keep playing this Rouser that I've been playing for a while with some success. I beat Dominguez and Nakamura and some other guys. The only guy I've lost to so far, actually, with this is Robson. So yeah, e6. And Smith Mora. Come on. Can I play the Nimza Nima's Black? I can try that, but it's hard to do against e4, which is all I've seen so far. Yeah, so bishop e2 is just not consistent with bishop g5. I think that if you're playing bishop g5, you should be looking for like direct attacking chess connected with castling long. The bishop on g5 makes a lot less sense if white is not ready to start like throwing f4 and attack stuff. So here, I certainly don't think that white is worse yet, but I kind of am feeling a little somewhat comfortable with my position. Okay, so he takes on c6, but this gives me the big center and will let me play d5 next. Philidor? Why do y'all want me to play such bad openings? All right, so d5, and now I have a very nice big share of the center. People want me to play the Philidor. It's just... So e5, but this is a very good version of the French because I have played b takes c6, which improves my bishop on c8 tremendously. It means I can go to a6. It means I can play c5 and bishop b7, and all sorts of other stuff. So let's start by gaining space. I might want to play bishop a6 and trade the bishops. I might just want to play a4. But yeah, a structure like this one with my, if I had my pawn back on b7 would definitely be better for white, and as is, I think it's better for black. So let's go queen b4. If he wants to straighten my pawns even further, I'd be quite happy to see it. So he does, but this is very unpleasant for white now. I can go c5 and, well, c5, there's always bishop b5. But like, let's say I trade off the bad French bishop and then get ready for like knight b6 to come next when he's left with the weak a pawn. And I have a nice big share of the center. I've managed to get rid of the bad French bishop, and basically the bad bishop is black's only problem in the French defense. Everything else about his position is fantastic. So yeah, here I think I have a very comfortable position. So take, and he can try a3 or c3, but it's not glorious by any stretch. My next move should probably be rook f8. Okay, so he wants c3. But this leaves us with sort of like Benko Gambit, like pressure against white's pawns, and mine I think are much more secure. So I believe black should be better here. Any plans on an opening repertoire versus 1 e4 for chessable? Yeah, I'm actually thinking I might do a Rouser repertoire, so sort of starting to advertise it a little bit with this Banter Blitz session, but yeah, okay. So knight a4 is sort of begging for c5 and then c4. So rook c1, and my whole point was c4 here. And he's going to be left with some weaknesses. And yeah, if I'm doing the Rouser repertoire, I would definitely recommend queen d2, a6. I don't believe in the positions after bishop e7. All right, so rook f3, but I don't think he can move, so I'm just going to start by slowly making Luft for my king. If he plays g4, I might throw g5 at him if I'm feeling rambunctious. So that just drops the a2 pawn. And now I'm taking everything. Okay, so this guy's thinking a bit. I suspect he may resign on this move. It's not only is the position lost, it's just so depressing to play a position like this one with white, where you have absolutely no counterplay. It's incredibly clear what is coming, and there's not a thing you can do about it. Those positions, you just sort of want to resign. So, but this guy wants to keep fighting. Fair enough. Knight c5 comes, and I'm ready for like knight e4, rook g4, h5. Okay, so good game to nicotic. Let's see, somebody else. Let's play with tyrion Lannister 124. Okay. So somebody is asking for Nimzo Indian, so why don't we give it a try? But you can't play the Nimzo Indian against the Trumpowski, so I guess I will play e6 here. So I think there's some variation like this, and I don't really know how it goes, but so I guess d5 can't be so terrible. Sure. So I think c5 should be okay. Oh, this guy is a Game of Thrones character? I didn't know that. Okay, so let's take on d4 and go bishop b4 and try to harass his pieces to some degree. Maybe it was better to play d4 first, because here he can play e5. Of course, queen a4 check does not win a piece because I have knight c6. All right, so let's take on e4 and castle. I don't know. I mean, I never really believed in positions like this where you just give the isolated pawn and don't really have much to show for it, but some people like them and play them pretty well. Okay, so a3, I guess just back home is fine. It's a little annoying for me to complete my queenside development, but I think I should be able to play knight d7 and then eventually reroute this knight to f6. So let's say I go, but queen e7, there's going to be rook c7, which is maybe a bit annoying. So I'm going to go queen b4, queen f4 instead, and this will give my queen access to a square like b8. And once I go knight f6 and kick his bishop off of e4, I will be ready to play bishop d7 and so on. So he goes off of e4 voluntarily, fine, but now knight f6, and I really don't believe he's going to have a serious attack if I always have g6 and bishop g7 whenever it's needed. He should probably play knight e4 here just because he does not want me to consolidate. So yeah, here. Yeah, so I think actually I'm going to duck the queen all the way back to b8. And the reason is I want to meet knight e4 with knight d5 and not allow this knight exchange. If his bishop can land on e4 and stay there safely, it's actually quite annoying for me to complete my queenside development. And if I had played queen d6 and he did something like knight e4, knight takes e4, bishop takes e4, it would be very hard for me to actually get the rook on a8 into the game. And here the rook on a8 is kind of clumsy, but, well, bishop d7 to c6 could be coming. So I think I have a pretty comfortable position. So he goes knight e4 anyway, but now my thought was after knight d5 that he will not get his bishop to e4. And here I'm not worried about very much, and I'm ready for like bishop d7 next. Maybe he can go knight c3. Probably should, actually. Knight e5. Well, I like the spirit of it, but I have a hard time believing. So I go bishop d7, and now I'm ready to play bishop e8 to bolster my king side, and it's just so hard for me to imagine getting mated when I have bishops on e8 and f8. Like, for example, if he plays like the most primitive aggressive queen h5, bishop e8, knight g5, and I just go like f5 or knight f6 or g6, like it feels like I have it under control. Or f6, it just feels like every move sort of, no, f6, bishop h7 is, even that though. Actually, I see a funny line here. Queen h5, bishop e8, knight g5. If f6, he has queen takes e8, and then bishop h7, knight g6. But yeah, so instead he simplifies the game, but now he's just left with the isolated pawn for basically nothing. So let's start with rook d8, I guess. Unless am I scared of him taking on e6? Rook d8, knight e6. If rook e8, he has queen d3. F e6, but that looks very scary. Let's go rook d6 just to be safe. It's also probably a pretty good score for the rook. Okay, so next up we just have to complete development. Queen is sort of misplaced. Let's start with g6 and make sure that I have the g7 square for my bishop whenever I need it. So sure, queen g4, let's kick the queen. And he goes queen g5, sure. So I guess to be a little careful here, actually. He's sort of maybe threatening to take something, sacrifice something on me. Let's go bishop e7. And in the event of queen h6, I'm going to go queen f8, takes, rook a takes f8, knight takes b7, and rook b6, winning the b2 pawn. And then, I mean, at some point, the isolated pawn should matter. Maybe it was better to play bishop g7 there, bishop g7 there, but I was somewhat worried about bishop takes g6. This way, the queen will be booted away. So the queen does make herself scarce. So, but this actually is a little bit annoying to consolidate. Let's start with rook c6 and challenge this knight a bit. So knight e4, sure. All right, I'm going to take this one and go queen f8, and this keeps everything nice and solid. There's no invasion points for any of his pieces. I'm ready with rook d8 next. And at some point, I mean, I've sort of been playing a very passive game so far, but at some point this isolated pawn on d4 should count. And I think that point is finally coming into play right around now. It took me a while, but I managed to contain the counterplay, and now the d4 pawn feels like it should fall pretty soon. It's going to be 7. And I can't go knight f5, that's rather a shame. So let's go queen g7. And he cannot play rook c7 because of knight d5. He does it anyway, but this I think is the end. So that was sort of a trick there, but I also think white's position was very difficult. So good game to tyrion. Next up we have Arkham Asylum. Let's play with you. Okay, so while we're still doing the chessable repertoire, which I will put in the chat momentarily, I might as well keep on playing d4. And let's see if I can cause this fellow any damage. So knight c3. All right, so does this guy have some big idea against my repertoire? So he goes for this Glasgow Kiss variation, which is a lot better than his reputation for sure, but I still think it's probably not enough for equality. He really needs to play knight c6 and sacrifice the pawn here. So he does. We take this, and then if I recall, the line is bishop d7, queen b3, rook b8, queen d1, and e5. And I think I actually gave away for white to show some edge, but it's very scary if you don't know what you're doing. I played the white side of this position against Agnieszka Matras-Clement once, and I won the game, but at some point I was just terrified she's going to just checkmate me in like 5 more moves. So here, there is some line. Bishop e2, bishop b4 is totally wrong though. That's the wrong square. Black needs to be playing bishop d6 and trying to like throw as many pieces at my king and quickly like go knight e4, rook b6, rook h6, and just throw everything at me. Because black is a pawn down with an Isolani. There's no way that black will be okay if he just plays some calm strategic game with bishop b4. So here I think white is already much better. Sure, so bishop d2. This is another drawback of bishop b4, is my bishop can now safely develop. So eventually he does that, but I guess maybe bishop d2 is clumsy, but this still feels like white should be better. All right, so I guess I'll just keep, if we just both keep developing our pieces normally, white's going to be clearly better at the end, so I don't see a reason not to allow that to happen. But here I'm realizing I actually just missed something. Here he can play bishop a3, rook c2, bishop f5. But even that, like I've literally just blundered an exchange. I still think white's better there. So he does it. And here I'm just losing an exchange right now, but funnily enough, I might still be better. So let's say I start with rook b1. He will go bishop f5 and now knight d4. And I just have huge compensation for this exchange because he has all these weak pawns. His rooks are not wildly impressive, and my pieces are very well coordinated. So despite the exchange down, I think I'm doing at least fine here. Probably not better, but like in practice, white's position might be easier to play here. It's pretty bad to just drop an exchange to a one mover like that, but what can you do? All right, so rook c2. So this I think is knight takes c6 and knight takes d5. I'm just trying to figure out what move order I want. I think this is fine, taking and then just taking d5 next. And so this will get me one pawn back, leading us to approximate material parity, but strategically black's position is a little suspect, I think. Sure, so queen d6, but now there's knight e7, right? Yeah, he had to get the queen somewhere else so that he could take with the bishop on e7. I'm not keeping up with the chat that well, guys, but all I will say is when we're discussing next world champion, anyone who thinks we're going to have a new world champion anytime soon has absolutely no idea how good Magnus is. If they had the slightest clue, they would not be making such comments. So here I should be pretty routinely winning. Let's go rook c4 and just be extremely calm and start trading stuff. So now I have 2 extra pawns, which should be easily winning. Funnily enough, the opposite bishops I think actually work in white's favor here, just because I will probably just mate him like on the white squares and he just has no counterplay whatsoever. All right, so here, sure, let's just keep it calm. At some point h5 will come and black should get mated. Sure, h5. So rook c6, bishop c4 next, and the attack just sort of plays itself. I don't know. Maybe I could have been more incisive at some point here, but let's just be patient. No trades for you. Like, black's best hope here is to just get some pure opposite bishop endgame, and I'm pretty sure that even that just loses. All right, I think it's time to get the attack to finish the game. So check ends now. H6 is very tempting, but queen f8, and it's not absolutely over. Maybe it is. Queen f8, queen f6. And yeah, this has to be finished. So queen f8, queen f6, and he cannot take my pawn because of rook takes b6. And here I think black is basically stalemated. And if he were to move his rook off of the d8 square, if he goes to like e8, I'll re-ready with bishop d5. So yeah, here I thought bishop d5 is quite enough. But if he had played rook d7, there was rook c8. Yeah, sure. Okay, so finish this off. Just back to f3 is quite fine. 7. All right, let's support the bishop. Like rook f6 or something. And I see a nice finish. After rook f8, I have queen c3, and he cannot stop rook g6. That's a nice way to finish the game. So a good game to Arkham Asylum. Yeah, next up we have, let's play with Misfortune. Or oops, I misclicked, but that's okay. I'll play with Misfortune. All right, Magnus is a Kasparov wannabe. I think I've played with you before. But let's play. Good luck. So keep on playing the chessable repertoire, which has worked well so far. Yes, knight f3. So that's not a particularly normal move, but I'm just going to keep on playing in the same fashion, which should be fine. Castle back, and now I probably could have been a bit more direct somehow, but that's okay. So b3. And I sort of argued that in these positions, white had a chance for an advantage. It's definitely not that easy, but yeah, when do you think over the board chess will make a proper comeback? I'm not a doctor. I'm not a politician. Those are the people who probably would have a better idea than. What do I recommend against the Nimzo with white? Well, in my chessable repertoire, I don't play into the Nimzo. We play knight f3 on move 3, which I do think is the most challenging move. If you had to play into the Nimzo, I would say maybe like queen c2 or f3 or e3 are the most challenging options, but I just think that the best move is knight f3. All right, so here I'm going to end up with a very pleasant position thanks to black's isolated pawn. Perhaps I could have been more incisive in some way, but yeah. So here, like, I don't know, endless good options. The simplest is just to take on f6 when, if he wants to preserve his pawn structure, I will take the pawn on d5. Let's just do this. It seems incredibly straightforward. So take, and now maybe this wasn't best, but this is a very clean extra pawn. If black, the problem is black can't preserve the knight on c5. He would very much like to play b6, bishop b7, and get some kind of lead in development, or like queen rook d8 and somehow get his pieces active in compensation for the pawn, but he just didn't have a way to defend the knight, and now he's got basically no compensation for the pawn down. If rook d8, I have queen e5, and this is most definitely an extra pawn. Yeah, so here I should be basically winning. was mentioning knight e4. Yeah, that move was sort of on my to-do list. I haven't actually covered it yet. All right, so here let's just keep improving pieces. Rook ac1, like knight c4 could be like a huge threat. And black can barely move. All right, so that one feels like should lose material. Let's go bishop b5. Maybe bishop f3 was better. Yeah, I think bishop f3 was a better move, but this is still absolutely winning. So bishop d5, and black can barely move, and knight c6 is coming, and if f6, I have rook c8. So now knight d7 should bring the game to its conclusion. All right. It's not the only way, but it's good enough. Someone's asking about timing of how much time you should spend on opening, middle game, end game, stuff like that. I definitely think 60% on tactics is a good amount. I mean, people say chess is, chess really is mostly tactics. There's a lot of guys out there who just don't understand chess that well and are fantastically strong players just because they see tactics really well. There's nothing wrong with that. They're just very, very good chess players because tactics are important. But yeah, 20% on the opening, 60% on tactics, and 20% on endgames is probably not the dumbest way you could do things. But yeah, this game is over. So let's just start bringing the king. I guess he can play king e8 and pretend I have to leave, but maybe I do have to leave. That's fine. Just back to d2. And black's position is just so miserable, he can barely move. All right, so he's sort of chopping my rook, but I don't think I care very much. Just bring the pieces. People say tactics matter less the better you get at chess. I strongly disagree. I think tactics are important at all levels. All right, let's start playing g4 and gaining kingside space. This game's been over for a while, but I do have to put the guy away. So here. And now if he plays g5, his knight is hanging. So I will play g5 and boot his knight. g5. And the knight is... I guess he can go to e8. Yeah, that one can do this. Rook d8, rook takes a7. I'm 2 pawns up as well as the exchange, and he's got endless pins, and whenever I want, I can just transition to a pawn endgame. Yeah, guys, tactics are definitely important to achieve positional goals. There's no doubt about it. All right, so at some point, I should probably just take on d7, but I don't know, somehow, for whatever reason, I'm feeling reluctant to do so. All right, takes, and take f7. So good game, Magnus is Kasparov wannabe. I forget who I was supposed to play with next. It was Misfortune. Okay. Good luck, Misfortune. Let's have a good game. Yeah, so d4. I'll give you 5 more seconds to play. There we go. Okay. c4. All right, so queen's given accepted. I recommended e3, and actually QGA was one of the spots I had the most trouble with throughout the course, but playing this with g6 strikes me as very strange. It's like I recommended something like this against the Slav with g6, but there at least white had to burn a tempo with bishop takes c4, and I think he still ended up better. So yeah, so here I think I just have a nice big center. Maybe bishop b3 is dumb. I probably should have put the bishop on e2 because at least now bishop g4 comes. But even if bishop g4 and I just go like bishop e3 and take gf3, I should be doing pretty well. Now I'm starting to regret playing so dumb. Yeah, so here I think black's probably more or less okay now. I've already screwed it up, but that's okay. All right, so now I have to play knight e2 because if I play d5, my structure will become grossly compromised. And this is the sort of position where I just should have had my bishop on e2. Like if my bishop were on e2 there instead of b3, I would be just clearly better. And here I think I've just grossly misplayed it. And black is very much fine. Take on f3 and then sure e6 is a sensible enough move. All right, so let's go king h1 and try to make sure my king doesn't run into trouble now that his pawn cover has become semi-compromised. But this position is not so easy for me anymore. So let's go queen d2 and bring this rook to d1. Black has some pressure against the d4 pawn that's pretty annoying. All right, so okay, d1. And I might have to start attacking the king here. With like I could start with like bishop g5, kick the rook away, and then queen f4. Okay, so let's start with bishop g5 here and boot this rook off of its perch. I think black should probably actually sacrifice an exchange on d4 and get that pawn. So f6 I think creates a huge weakness on the e6 square. And I'm actually tempted to just throw knight f4 here, but I'm going to be calm and retreat the bishop instead. And now black's king could just get completely clobbered in like 3 more moves. Knight f4 is coming, and this feels like it should be more or less devastating. So black must play rook e8, and then knight takes e6 anyway. And d5 comes, and black collapses. So this move f6 was basically really asking for trouble. And now white is crashing through. But yeah, I think I misplayed it early on. Bishop b3 was, I mean, now bishop b3 looks great, but it was misplaced before. But here, now that black has played f6, it's sort of a pretty good attacking piece. So rook e6, d5 comes. That's my point. And now knight c4, I don't understand, but that's certainly only going to cause black more problems and not solve the ones she already has, but I believe the position was already beyond saving. So take on e6. And now I'm up a rook. She can take the bishop on c4, but rook d7 comes, and it's bad news for black. Guys, why are we talking in chat about how to like hide our internet activity from our parents? That seems like a weird topic for a chess chat. I mean, of course, I became an expert at it when I was like 15, but it's not something you should be proud of. All right. All right, so here I'm making a queen, and I think that I will have escaped this couple mistakes with misfortune. So queen, and then all right, let's see who else wants to play. Anybody higher rated? I want a little bit more of a challenge. Okay, H Broken has a pretty high rating. Let's play with you. Okay, who is H Broken? But top books for chess tactics, quality chess puzzle book. Okay, H Broken. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, board. All right, who else wants to play? Let's see. Anyone with a high rating? Okay, let's play with libaros. All right, let's see if this guy can cause any trouble from my trustable repertoire, which I will once more put here in the chat. So I gave knight f3 and then knight c3. That's bishop f4. And this is what I covered in the course. Here black has 3 main moves in c5, knight b d7, and b6. And I believe knight b d7 is the best one. c6 is not one of black's main moves. Would I ever try chess boxing? Not particularly. I like boxing, but more like shadow boxing than getting in the ring. All right. So I don't know how we're supposed to play these positions here, but I think rook d1 is not supposed to be totally stupid. Okay, I think it's time. Once he has played b6, that's a good indication that I should be moving my bishop. Because it means that dc4 and b5 is not necessarily a loss of tempo anymore, because he will have played b5 in 2 moves, the same way I played bishop c4 in 2 moves. Okay, so it's always hard to actually make trouble in these positions. Like white should definitely be better with the lead in development and a little extra space and the bad bishop on b7, but black's still very solid. It's not easy to break through. Knight e5, I'm already regretting. I'm realizing that h6 means that he can just take it and not laugh at me. So I can't take with the pawn because of knight h5, and he doesn't have to worry about it hanging pawn on h7 anymore. So I'm actually playing this absolutely terribly, but I still think my position's pretty decent. His queen is sort of awkward, but my rook on f1 isn't good either. Maybe rook d1 was dumb. Okay, so that strikes me as a little suspicious. If I take on d6 and then go e4, or if I play e4 directly, I think black is left with a difficult position. Let's go e4 directly. This strikes me as more to the point. And it's not so easy for black to coordinate his pieces correctly now. Like if he tries, that one I didn't think was great, because here just knight takes e4, and he's going to be left with a very bad bishop on b7. How do I feel about my chances for future Magnus Tour events? I feel good. I mean, I've never been a great rapid player, never been a great online player, but I did a lot of work on this recently, trying to make myself more competitive. And I had like real chances. I mean, I only missed qualification by half a point, and I was like much better. I messed up. Like I clearly had good chances to beat like Grischuk and Aronian and Nepomniachtchi. I only drew 2 of those games and lost 1. Of course, I was also lucky to beat Hikaru in the last round because I was in serious trouble. But I don't know. I mean, I thought I clearly showed that I'm capable of qualifying on any given day. I mean, it was just tough. The one game that stands out at me the most was the one with Wesley, where I like literally just dropped a piece in 1 move. I mean, it was the first game of the day at 8 in the morning, and I was still sort of asleep, and I just dropped a piece in 1 move. In fact, I didn't even realize he spent like a minute taking it, and I didn't even realize until like he took it that it was hanging in that whole minute there. So it was so that was sort of sloppy. But yeah, here this should be like winning for white strategically because of my very powerful passed pawn and his less than impressive bishop. So the best way to probably finish this off is an attack against his king, which is something I wrote about in Small Steps too, which is that if you have a far advanced passed pawn in the middle game, often the best way to send it through is to make unrelated threats to the opponent's king, as then this will make him defend on 2 parts of the board. And here, for example, black has coordinated his pieces to stop the passed pawn, but now he's just mated. So this shows exactly what I'm talking about in small steps 2. Go mate the king because the passed pawn distracts all his pieces. Okay, so good game to libaros. See who else wants to play. Chess physician, let's play with you. So let's keep on playing the repertoire. So yeah, knight c3. So you're gonna go Grunfeld? Yep. So in the repertoire, I gave the Russian system, and hopefully this game I won't get clobbered, and I can show some of the points behind it. So yeah, e4. And this is the most ambitious way white can play against the Grunfeld. He takes the entire center and doesn't even let black exchange a pair of pieces on c3. So black really has to make counterplay here, or else his position gets very bad very fast. So his 2 moves here are bishop b7 and bishop e6. Honestly, they probably both hold in a higher chess sense, but they're not fun. So someone says, I punished Hikaru and knocked him out of the tournament. Would I have, if he had gone for a draw, would I have, I mean, there was a position where I was basically just lost, and if he had offered me a draw there or whatever, sure. But I mean, Hikaru is a professional chess player. He's not just going to offer me a draw in a winning position. He had to go for it. Now, Queen H7 as he played was definitely not best, but like, I can't imagine. It just feels so irrelevant. I cannot imagine Hikaru ever not playing for a win in that position. I mean, he's a great chess player. He's not just going to like offer a draw when his position's really good. So I did a little carefully here. He wants knight b4, I guess. And if bishop e3, he has knight g4. So I should be at least a little bit cautious, but maybe I have some tactical possibilities. I'm thinking bishop g5. Nah, that's too much. Doesn't feel great. His bishop is too good at the end. Let's just go a3 and stop him from playing knight b4. Though it's actually occurring to me here that knight g4 is a little annoying when it's hard to stop knight d4. I'll have to play g3, which I'm not thrilled about. Okay, so he goes b4 anyway, but this feels wrong because now I can go knight a4 or something. Or actually, wait, a b4, knight b4, queen a4, queen c5, bishop e3. His queen doesn't have a square, so I think I can get away with taking this one. Yeah, so knight takes b4 and then queen a4, and I don't believe he will be able to take on c5 because after bishop e3, the queen does not have a square. If queen d6, there is e5. So here I think I keep the pawn. All right, so he goes for rook fb8. I suppose that's sensible enough. I almost just blundered checkmate there, but I think I can play h3 and just be calm. My point is that if he takes my pawn on c5, I will go bishop f4, and his rook doesn't have a square. Wherever his rook goes, bishop e3 next is going to hurt. So, yeah, guys, of course I saw the Iranian game where he did not follow my recommendation and promptly got completely crushed. He then did follow my recommendation the next time they played, but oh, did I just miss that square completely? Yeah, I'm dumb. All right, rook c1. His queen is still in some trouble. I don't know. I'm playing this game very badly, but yeah, the next game he did follow the recommendation, and he got a nice position at some point before eventually allowing Maxim to escape. Right, bishop d7, sure. Let's go queen a3, and I've played an underwhelming game here so far, but I still think black has some clear problems to solve with his coordination. Queen b6, sure. All right, let's just keep developing. And I mean, e5 is like an incredibly primitive threat, but how does he actually stop it? It's not that easy. All right, so he doesn't believe it's a threat and just ignores me. I feel like he's doing that as his own peril, but let's see. E5. If knight d5, I can take it, and I'm good to go, so there's no trickery. And if knight h5, I have bishop e3. Okay, so he sacks in exchange, but I don't get it. bc3, and then this should be good enough. Too many hanging pieces. Knight e4, I guess he wants to take f2, so I start with bishop e3, and then take b4 next with an extra rook. So a good game to chess position. Thank you for playing. Let's see who else wants to play. JFK Anessa, let's play with you. So 3-minute game, so it's a bit faster. The black pieces this time. Have I just played a bunch of white games in a row, or am I imagining that? All right. 5. Okay, he played the time. All right, so let's continue on with the chessable repertoire, which is once more, I have the semi-Slav repertoire here as well. We'll see if I can do any kind of good advertisement for it. I've put it in the chat. So yeah, here I gave e6, and Averick gave b3 in that position with some interesting lines, but okay, so bishop d2 is a bit weird. Let's just pretend nothing happened. What do I think about the hillbilly attack? I think most openings I haven't heard of are probably not very good. It says also Magnus played it a year back. I also think most openings that Magnus plays are not very good. So yeah, here this bishop on d2 is a little weird, but I mean, I go ahead and play like a normal Moran as if nothing happened. So yeah, bishop b7, and funnily enough, white's position can actually get really bad really fast. Like for example, after a4, now I'm going to go b4, and he cannot get the knight to a4. I think that like white's actually already much worse once I play c5 next. I mean, it feels like that's. I mean, like it's sort of hard to imagine that it's that terrible for him, but like the position actually just gets incredibly uncomfortable very fast if black gets c5 in these Moran positions under good circumstances like this. And already I just think black is clearly better. The pieces are springing to life very nicely. What does it take for an extremely strong GM to get better at a very elite level? Same thing as everybody else. Constant training, constant obsession over your losses and trying to find improvements along the way, increasing your knowledge of the opening, endless calculation exercises. I mean, really, all the things you would expect that everybody else does, I think, are also relevant, even at strong GM level. I mean, when I finally broke through in 2018, I didn't even do anything different. I was just doing more of the same, but it finally started to show. All right, knight e5 is a bit of an annoying move, but I think no, I think I'm actually good. So I take on e5 with the bishop. The point is, if he takes with the pawn, I can go knight takes d2, and then queen takes d2, bishop takes f3, and knight takes e5 when I remain a pawn up. But if he takes with the knight, he's going to get pinned on the d file, which is not going to work well for him. So here, black should be winning every which way. Probably the cleanest is bishop d5 when it's a serious problem for him to defend b3. So he tries that, but I believe I can take it anyway because now the bishop is hanging on d2. It says, in the champion Chester, I played 9 queen b3 a couple times in the Rogozin instead of the bishop e2 move I recommended in the course. Yeah, so I think that bishop e2 is a better move, but queen b3 is sort of tricky and good for rapid and blitz. So it is supposed to be lifetime repertoires. And like, honestly, I played this queen b3 idea, and then like I played it against Aroni and got a good position, but then like Dominguez had clearly checked it in the break, and he just equalized very easily with black using whatever 10 minutes he had to prepare in the meantime. So if he can equalize that easily, I think it's just not as good a move and only good for practical purposes. Similarly, against Maxime, I actually deviated from my repertoire and played bishop f4 instead of e6 at some point. Once more, it's a similar thing. I think that e6 is a better move, but bishop f4 is tricky and good for rapid. So this game is just about over. We're going to take this one, and then how does one work on calculation, especially in Blitz? In Blitz, you don't calculate, so there's not much to it, but just endless exercises. Like, Jakob gives me a ton from, like, for example, at like killer chess training, he has homework club that I do all the time, and I worked with Jakob this morning as well. All right, so I am the guy. Let's play with you. I think we have time for maybe 2 more games. Okay, I am the guy. What you got for me? So playing more semi-Slavs here, and we'll see if the preparation holds up. Yeah, so all of this is available in the Chessable course. Was it fun filming, kicking, and screaming? There's a throwback. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was definitely, it was a very different experience. It made me appreciate chess a lot more because chess is a fair game, and kicking and screaming was not particularly fair in terms of its rules. But I really enjoyed it. I still keep in touch with a lot of the people I met there, and I did my best to portray chess players well to the outside world. Of course, I was edited to look like let's say somebody who's not very well liked. I had another word in mind, but then remembered I was on the stream. But yeah, I've definitely kept in touch with some of the other cast members and a couple of the producers, and so that's been cool. All right, so he has played bishop d3 here, which according to my course is a serious mistake. White absolutely needed to play rook c1 so that I would not be able to play queen c8, queen c7. Here I think, or actually, maybe this is still fine. I can start with rook c8, but at some point he's probably going to play e4. I think he really needs to play rook c1 here. If I'm allowed to play queen c7 next, I should be fine. Any thoughts on the mutual oversight in the tiebreak with Safarli, where I dropped a rook in one move and then, well, I saw it after I moved, but if I needed to win the game, and if I defended the rook or tried not to stop it, I was just going to draw. I don't know. I mean, it's hard. Like that World Cup, I was playing with a slashed open hand and doing physical therapy during the game. It was just hard to see the board straight and calculate. I could barely think. I could barely sleep. Like it was not. I mean, it was just a very hard tournament for me. Which I guess explains why I didn't see it. As to why Eltaj didn't see it, I don't know. He seemed to be in pretty good form and just had an oversight. All right, so here I seem to be a pawn up. Would I be in favor of banning the Scotch 4 Knights? No. I'd rather just take the players who play the Scotch 4 Knights and not ever invite them again. In general, I think whenever people make quick draws, if someone gets invited to a tournament and just makes like quick draws, I think they should just never be invited back. It's very easy. Organizers can just do that. They don't need to like get authority from FIDE to punish. They just don't invite them back. So, for example, I was not amused when I was excluded from the FIDE Grand Prix in favor of guys who just showed up and made a bunch of draws. But so, guys, saying about will I updating the semi-Slav course? Yeah, I do my best to update the Chessable courses. Obviously, I can't update them all the time. I have other things I do. I come out with new courses. Obviously, any course I give is not going to be perfect. It's going to be very good, I hope, but I hopefully will update at some point. But at this point, the updates have been are going to be fewer and far between because especially once real chess comes back and I'm like playing classical events, it's hard for me to imagine I'll just have tons of time to do Chessable updates. But for now, I'm still trying to do them relatively frequently. So here I'm just 2 pieces up. There's no way my king is ever going to have any trouble. And now white's the one who's going to get mated very, very quickly, actually. So yeah, the pieces will come in and black will give mate. So check and then mate on f2. All right, so I think we have time for one more before We move on to question answer. Let's see, who's the highest rated player I see here? There's anybody with like a really big rating? Let's see. Okay, let's play with Jup. That's FM, so that's pretty good. All right. So good luck, Jup. This will be the last game. So here, C4, C6. Let's keep following the repertoire and okay, A6, sure. Yeah, so I gave Queen B3 in the course. And after Rook A7, I gave this idea to play Knight H4 first, kick this bishop away. That one I don't think is great. You just take on D5 and black ends up worse, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, here I just got a bishop pair. But the point was in the event of bishop C5, bishop C8 instead, we're going to we're going to take on D5. So here this is somewhat similar in that we're playing an exchange Slav as well here, but an improved version because I've already taken the bishop pair for basically nothing. So let's go. What am I going to do? Does he want to play bishop B4? Maybe, but I don't think I care that much. Let's just go A3 because Rook A8, sure. And here, like, black is very solid, but he's just a little worse, and he will always be a little worse. And the bishop pair is pretty annoying in the long run. Yeah, so now Rook C1, and like bishop takes A6 is coming, and it's actually not that easy to stop. All right, so he goes back like that, but this probably allows some kind of knight E5. Yeah, let's just go knight E5. All right, so he takes, but now I get the C file. I don't think he's going to want to let me give the queen. Maybe he can go Rook C8 here. Even if he can't take it, I'm going to be better. I'd feel a little foolish for taking with the queen then. Okay, so he does this, and this feels like he's just begging me to sacrifice my queen. But somehow I don't see the way through. Take, and knight E8, and yeah, okay, fine. I'm just gonna go this way instead. But I mean, even here, like, he's still just worse. I mean, I don't know how much, but white is undeniably a bit better. Long into the endgame. All right, so let's go F3 and stop this knight from coming to E4. Sure, so let's start going king F2. Okay, G4, gain some space. It'll be a bit annoying to put this away, but white's definitely better. All right, so let's start with check. Destabilize him a bit because he cannot play bishop D6. And next up is maybe F4. And now that, all right, I guess, what do I take with? I take with the D pawn. I mean, not great. So let's go here. And now, that's an annoying move. All right. Yeah, I think I've misplayed this pretty badly. Now black seems fine. I should have been better, but not anymore. All right, so check first. Let's get this. Let's harass this king just a bit. Guess we take this and then start retreating the bishop so that I can play F3, but E5. I'm just blundering everything this game. All right, E4 at least complicates things. Let's try that and have some fun. I've misplayed this about as badly as you can. Well, that's not true. I'm not losing here, but Someone's saying about, yeah. So basically, when it comes to these repertoires, a lot of the time I don't give the best move against non-critical lines, just because against these lines, I think it's just a huge tax on your memory to have to remember like perfect chess to try to like prove an advantage with black as early as move 5 or whatever. And it strikes me as incredibly impractical. I think it's much better to stick with the easiest possible solution so that you only have to memorize stuff against like the more serious attempts. Yeah. In other news, this position is going to be very hard to break through. So we'll see if I can try or not, but I'm hopeful that maybe I can. Okay, so I think that was an incredibly bad decision, and now he's just in Z1. This bishop is so bad. He needed to leave his knight on the board, and now he's just lost. But yeah, this is gone. Okay, let's go make a queen. Okay, so good game to jump. I guess now we have half an hour for Q&A. I don't know if I'm going to be able to use a board, but yeah, if anybody has questions, you can put them in the chat. I will actually maybe open up the YouTube link as well so I can watch people there. Let's see if I put this like here. Yeah, so any questions people have, I'm here for another half hour. I don't know if I'll be able to like set up a board or anything, but I'm trying to read both YouTube chat as well as Chess24, but I'm going to give priority to Chess24. All right, what did I think of Queen A4 in my game with Magnus? I mean, look, he made it work. He beat me very easily. Is it a challenging move in theory? No. I mean, black is absolutely fine in any number of ways, but it's not. But I guess I just wasn't ready for it. I didn't play it the best. I'm sure that if I was hit unprepared with Queen A4 in a classical game, I would have reacted better. Do I personally use Chessable for my own opening training? I definitely use the courses that I've done. I'm just going to spam the course here, the information for the courses here in the chat. But I actually sort of were thinking, I was thinking, is it better to, once I've made these courses and given this opening analysis, is it better to play this analysis and just show like, hey, you know, it's all on the table, or to not play it and say, okay, well, now that I've published this, there's plenty of other good openings I could do. But what I ultimately concluded is I should play this analysis sometimes. And the reason for that is if I just never play this analysis, it doesn't tax my opponent's preparation in any way. They're not going to look. They're not going to bother. If I play this analysis sometimes, then I will be able to force them to prepare for it. Every game, they're going to have to go looking through my courses, copying them into ChessBase, trying to find holes in the repertoire, trying to make sure they're ready. But then I might not play it. So I think it's very important to play the analysis sometimes and not always. Yeah, so it says many authors say that writing a book is a great way to say goodbye to an opening. I don't think that's true. I think you should sometimes play that opening and not always. This will force people to go read that book. They will have to, you know, be ready for it because they know that you play it every now and then. And then but then that will, even if you don't play it, that's going to eat into their preparation time. Looks like people in the YouTube chat don't have the link. I think I actually have a YouTube account here, so I can probably publish it there as well. So there's the link. Am I working on another course? Yeah, the Razer will be next. Outside of chess, do you enjoy fiction or nonfiction? More nonfiction, I would say. I mean, it's not like I read tons of books or autobiographies or anything like that, but but yeah, I guess I enjoy that more. If chess is solved, do you think it would be a perfect game? Would white win? It would definitely be a draw. No, chess is a draw for sure, but luckily we're human beings with flesh and blood. We're human beings. We make mistakes. We're imperfect creatures. I just played the Champions Tour against 15 of the best players in the world and had 6 draws and 9 decisive games. Yeah. So it can certainly happen. How has Leela changed the way you approach opening theory? It's just another opinion. I mean, it's another tool you use to analyze. Same as Stockfish or another engine. It's good to have different kinds of attitudes toward the position from, the same way you would want to get two very strong players who have very different attitudes towards chess. You could learn a lot by listening to both of them. I think I think that applies to machines as well. They might approach chess very differently, but if they're both much stronger than you can learn a lot from both of them, and it's better to look at their differences and things like that than to just try to learn from one. Because I don't know what happened with Hikaru on the stream. I wasn't watching, but if he was in any way upset with how the game was going, that'd be understandable. He had missed a win. This is a very high tension, high emotion, high stress, high stakes game that we play, and in general, I don't really get offended if somebody doesn't have the best behavior in any given moment. It's just part of the game. Hikaru, I don't know what happened on the stream, but I've met him many times in person. I've played on the Olympic team with him for years, and he's been nothing but cordial, professional, polite, and respectful with me. And if there was any indiscretion on the stream, I don't care at all. That will not affect my opinion of him. Other questions? The Euro Rapid. I mean, again, just like people who are talking about like who the next world champion is going to be, if you pick anybody other than Magnus, like you have no clue how good Magnus is. And if you pick anybody other than Magnus to win this tournament, you also have no clue how good Magnus is. Is he going to win it? I mean, he certainly doesn't have to. Somebody else could outplay him. There's no doubt. But in any given event, his odds are just so much better than anybody else. It's like, yeah. Is there any chess content I would miss if I book your course without video? I mean, I think the video does make it better. Like, for example, it's not even intentional, but like when I'm trying to explain things, oftentimes in the course, you just have a whole bunch of arrows that are all there that look ridiculous in a position. You'll see some position with like 6 different arrows that make no sense. But it's because I don't generally put arrows in when I make the course. I put the arrows in when I'm recording. So I'm literally recording and then drawing the arrows as I'm talking, one after the other. And when you hear me talk and you see the order in which the arrows happen, it starts to make more sense. I mean, honestly, like, do I think the video portion is necessary? I mean, I think it doesn't. I think the difference between buying the course and not buying the course is much smaller than between buying the video and not buying the video, but, it should help. I mean, it's just up to you. Other question. People say, do I think Ferrugia will surpass Magnus? Maybe in the same way that Magnus surpassed Kasparov. That could happen. I don't think it will. I certainly don't think it will happen before Magnus retires. Other questions? Can Daniel become 2,700? Certainly. I just think it's a matter of priorities. He's also got a very successful stream that he seems to enjoy. It's just a matter of priorities for him. And if he enjoys streaming and that's more his thing, more power to him. It's just his decision and nobody else's. Do I like cats? No, dogs are better. Cats are good dog food. Let's see. Other questions. I don't actually advocate that anybody feed cats to their dog, just out of curiosity, just to make that clear. That would not be a nice thing to do. HG Falling, who are you? Very clever. The Opera Rapid was played on Chess24's Play Zone. They just gave me direct links. Which opponent do I think that I have learned the most from in my past? That's actually a really good question. Not which player, but which opponent have I learned the most from? Who would that be? Maybe Alex Onischuk. I think he's one that would be up there for sure. I've learned a lot from playing with Robson over the years as well, both from when we were very young as well as to when we were getting older. Yeah, so I think a lot of these guys who I played with a lot growing up, like Lunderman as well, or Robson, both of them were a bit stronger than me when we were kids, and so I played with them a fair amount, and I think I learned a lot from my games with them, especially as we were all growing up around the same time. Onischuk, I mean, I think it says a lot that when I finally won the U.S. Championship, it was when I finally beat Onischuk. I mean, he's someone I learned a lot from playing against over the years as well. Yeah, guys, I'm reading both YouTube and the Chess24 chat, but paying more attention to the Chess24 one. Best way for black to react against 7 Queen D3 in the Rouser. I played Bishop E7 against Mateus Bartel, which I think is quite clever. There's a variation, I'm going blindfold here, but it's like Bishop E7, castle's long, castle's short, F4, and here with the queen on D2, I think white's better, but with the queen is somewhat misplaced on D3 because you can play Queen B6. And the point is that in the event of knight takes C6, B takes C6, E5, DE5, FE5, here you can go rook D8 and black is fine. And the difference is that because white's queen is on D3, the queen has to move. While if the queen were on D2 instead, after bishop D3, black can resign. So I think that this queen B6 resource is kind of nice. So I like playing bishop E7, queen B6. Most exciting game of the Opera Euro Rapid. Of all the games, I think the best one was probably the Duda game where he got all the pawns against Dubov. That one was very exciting. As for my games, I think my most exciting one was probably with Alexander Grischuk. It was the most interesting one of mine, I think. So was there a point in my game with Hikari where I would have accepted a draw? I mean, in theory, yes. Like, of course, I was just busted at some point. Like, I mean, not for a very long time. It was only for a few moves that my position was like really, really bad. If he had offered me a draw there, yeah, I'd accept it. But it's an irrelevant question. Like, Hikaru is a professional chess player and a U.S. champion. He's not just going to offer a draw in a winning position. I just don't really see that happening. And so I don't think it's relevant. Like, yeah, if anybody offers me a draw in a dead winning position, I'm going to take it. But yeah, there's no real reason that I think it's relevant. There was no real even phase where it was equal. Like, it unraveled for him so fast. Like, he was just dead winning and then like 3 moves later, dead lost. There was never really a moment where it was equal. So I don't know. What are my thoughts on Aronian? Obviously, he's a very good chess player. I don't know what you mean. It's a strange question. Do I still enjoy chess? I would enjoy it much more if I could. I would enjoy it much more if I could actually play. But hopefully that will come back reasonably soon. Obviously, it was a delight to play the Champions Tour, and I was actually pretty bummed that I missed qualifying by half a point to the next stage. I'd love to play the next one, and that's fantastic, but it's never the same as playing classical chess. Yeah, so I'm very much looking forward to over the board chess returning. Yeah. Alapin Sicilian. It's not the worst opening, but like it just strikes me as the wrong attitude towards playing chess, and it almost strikes me as cowardly, or like a chick. Maybe not cowardly, but it feels like you're lacking confidence. The Open Sicilian is one of the most beautifully complex middle games you can possibly get. In fact, probably the most beautifully complex middle game you could imagine. Like, you learn so much by playing these complicated, dynamic, opposite side castling, same side castling. All of these Sicilians are just so dynamic and so interesting that I think there's just guys who got really, really good at chess and just failed to reach their absolute peak of their powers because they played D4 every game with white and they played like the Spanish every game with black, or the French. And guys like these really shot themselves in the foot because they never played into the Open Sicilian. First of all, I think it's a better way. I think knight f3 and d4 is the best way to challenge the Sicilian. But in addition to that, it's also the best way for you to learn to become a better chess player by forcing yourself to play these incredibly deep, complicated positions as opposed to much similar ones. The Alapin, the closed Sicilian, these are not terrible openings, but it just strikes me as shooting yourself in the foot, and that you are giving up prematurely. You're saying, oh, I'm not willing to fight for an advantage early on because I want to play an easier opening or ones where my moves are easier to find. This does not let you grow as a chess player. I don't recommend sidelines and stuff like that. So I think you want to fight in mainline openings. Have I ever played John Fedorovitz? Yeah, I played him a few times. He beat me a couple times when I was young, and then the third time we played, when I was already a grandmaster, then I won. Do you think Magnus will recover from his slump before the World Championship? Is he even in that much of a slump? I mean, the World Championship is classical chess, and in classical, like he's won one of his last two tournaments. Like winning half the tournaments he plays is pretty good. I don't know. I mean, he had a lethargic Tata Steel. I think he's still far and away the best chess player in the world, and whoever comes out of the candidates, I think, will be a big underdog. And no, I don't want to have my own YouTube channel. I think I have an account here so that I can put. I have an account on YouTube just so I can put links and stuff. But I have a video of me at the batting cages with Jon Ludvig Hammer, but that's about it. I don't really do the whole streaming YouTube thing. Other questions? Updates on the Semislav course soon. Yeah, so my next project is the Rouser. This is going to be a relatively short project. And once that's done, I think once I've filmed it and it's going through editing, then I will be able to add some updates to stuff. At what age should I make chess a profession? I mean, I guess I went to high school, so like when I graduated high school, I was 17, and I had a very late start with chess. I mean, I played my first tournament just before I turned 11, and like most people nowadays are like almost grandmasters at that point for like super elite players. So I started very late. I was never homeschooled or anything. I had a totally normal American upbringing, going to school every day and stuff like that. So I never really had an opportunity to play professional chess until I was like 17 and out of high school, and even then I went to college. How annoying are the bishop e5 check lines against your Sicilian repertoire? Well, I haven't started working on it yet. In general, I think bishop e5 check is not that annoying. I think among white's lines apart from the open Sicilian, it's clearly the best option. I think bishop b5 check is much better than the Alapin or the closed Sicilian or the Grand Prix attack or anything like that. But I still think it's probably going to be less of an issue than like the main lines in the Rouser with bishop g5. Let's see, other questions. What was it that drew me to the Rouser and the Sicilian is the variation you wanted to create a course on? Honestly, because I wanted to create a lifetime repertoire, and there just aren't that many left to do. I'd already done one with black against d4. I'd done one for white with d4. And I did one for black against c4, knight f3. I guess the complete repertoire is done once I have a response to e4. And like all the other options that I might consider, like Najdorf, Berlin, Archangel, or whatever, are all already taken. Taimanov. I mean, these are the lines I might have thought about. What do I think about the Petrov? I don't know. It's a good opening, but not one that I like to play with either color. I've never played it for black. I mean, with black, I've always liked playing dynamic chess, especially because like almost all the time I end up playing with low-rated players. You don't really want to play the Petrov. Like when I fell in 2019 and fell hard, it was really for a lot of reasons, but one of the biggest ones was I played 40 games in a row against low-rated players, and that was just a lot. And chess is very drawish in its nature. Playing the Petrov in these games and making even more draws would have probably led to even more pain. Thoughts on the perk? I don't know. It's not a great opening. Archangel or Marshall is black. I think they're both totally fine. Probably Probably the Marshal has had a richer chess history and is maybe a bit more sound, but it's less dynamic counter chances. I think they're both totally fine openings. I said Magnus plays some bad openings, which are the worst. It's actually very rare nowadays that Magnus plays a bad opening in a game that counts. He often like messes around with white, like playing Queen A4 against him, but it's not like white's worse after Queen A4. But like he messes around. Like he played this Banter Blitz final with Wesley and started with F3, King F2. Like in real chess, he doesn't play bad openings, basically ever. Norwegian rat, people are saying. Yeah. Thoughts on semi-Tarash? It's a pretty good opening. It's very solid. It's hard to break down. I definitely think it was one of the harder spots to fight for an advantage in the course. I don't think I proved an advantage for white. I think the final position I got to was defensible for black, but yeah. What do I think about getting ELO points for online tournaments? I don't like it. I think FIDE should stick to classical chess for its ratings, and I think the classical chess will be back soon. Do I think the Scandinavian is boring? Well, I think winning is fun, so I'm quite happy to see the Scandinavian. Thoughts on MVL struggling with his Grunfeld against Magnus today? I don't know. I mean, did he even struggle that much from the opening? It didn't even look like his openings were going that badly, I thought. I just thought Magnus played better in the resulting middle games. I think at some point in both games, black was totally fine, and then Magnus was the better player today. I don't think Maxime is quaking in his boots. Oh no, I can't play the Grunfeld anymore because I lost a couple of games to Magnus. What do I think of the Knock Manson Gambit? If I haven't heard of it, it's probably not very good. What opening would I choose in a must-win game for white and black, respectively? Well, there's two kinds of must-win games. There's a must-win game against a normal opponent, and there is a must-win game against an opponent who explicitly needs a draw. If you're playing with black in a must-win game against a normal opponent, like for example, let's say you need to win with black to make a grandmaster norm, but not to win the tournament, and your opponent like is already a grandmaster and just has a totally normal game in front of them, I think just play your normal repertoire is probably the best thing you can do. You know, like imagine you're 2450 looking for a GM norm and your opponent's 2550 and playing white against you without that much on the line. You're like, oh no, I can't play the Slav because he might play c takes d5 and force a draw. Like he's not going to do it. Like there's absolutely no reason for him to do that. So I think if you're playing against a guy, if you need to win, but you're also playing against a guy who does not specifically need a draw, then just play your normal game. If you're playing with black against a guy who does need a draw, that's much tougher. Then you have to alter things a little bit. In general, I would say try to play less forcing variations. I'd recommend openings like Caro Khan or some kind of like Queen's Indian or something that keeps a lot of pieces on the board. What is the origin of my last name? It's Scottish. My great-grandparents are from Scotland, but I mean, I'm like fourth generation American. We've been here forever. What do you think about increasing the amount of draws and the increasing amount of draws in classical, but also rapid chess? I think format has a lot to do with it. I think that you could make classical chess a little bit faster without it becoming rapid. I think, Fischer regarding the demise of chess, calling chess a dead game, 40 years ago when there was just so much more to learn, so many great players to see, so many great events. I think calling classical chess dead is foolish. I also don't like that rapid is favoring talented guys. I think classical chess really has a very healthy balance between how far talent will get you and how far hard work will get you. I think you need both. And I think that there are very talented players, there are very hardworking players, and both can really make it. While in rapid chess, I think that it skews heavily towards talent and farther away from hard work. So just on a personal level, because we all know which category I belong to, I really prefer classical chess. Yeah. So someone says, what's inherently wrong with chess 960? It's sort of similar. it skews heavily towards more talented people. You know, if you get somebody who's just a smarter person than me, a better natural chess player than I am, and I just work harder, learning more openings, and not just the openings, but learning the typical pawn structures that arise and the piece assortments and rules with which that I can operate in the middle games, that gives me a big edge over somebody, like even if they're more naturally talented than me. And when you just shuffle all the pieces on the back row, it takes that edge away, and work ethic just becomes so much less important than natural talent. And that's not something I'm happy about. So, yeah. There's no money in classical chess. That's absolutely false. Does playing speed chess make you impatient in classical? I think playing too much speed chess will, but, you know, in moderation, it shouldn't be a huge problem. Other questions? Yeah, guys, just because a great player lost once to like some bad opening in an online tournament with 3 minutes a game does not make the opening good. Do I find watching computers play each other interesting? Not really. I think watching great chess players play each other is interesting, especially if I'm one of the players. The same way, like, you know, watching if you created a machine that could throw a pitch at 200 miles an hour and just watch it strike everybody out, or like had this against a bat that could go faster than a human, just doesn't really interest me the same way watching baseball would. But I don't know. Can a modern day player with immense talent make it to world champion in Canada without a great coach and team? Probably not, but they'll always have a great coach and team. Let me put it this way. A modern day player with immense talent and some work ethic will very easily get to the point where they are good enough to make enough money to afford a great coach and team. So it's very strange to like have a situation where, you know, somebody has incredible talents and then they will not reach a great coach and team. I mean, I never had any like really high level coaching until I was 2600, you know, and I mean, I'm not a crazy talented guy, but I'd like to think I have some natural aptitude for the game. And so I made it to 2600 with, you know, some resources, some basic level coaching, but certainly not an amazing team or anything. And then when I finally was able to hire Jakob when I was 2600 and earned some support, I sort of made it. So. How good did it feel to ruin Hikaru's tournament? Yeah, come on. Hikaru was one of my earliest childhood heroes. He's in my lifetime, he's been the only player to grow up in America and reach like a super elite level. He was one of my earliest childhood heroes. It didn't feel great to ruin his tournament. It felt great to defeat a very strong player, but it didn't feel great to ruin his event or anything. Or like, as I've said, I tend to view him positively. Would you consider Jakob the best coach in the world? Yes, period. Maybe Dvoretsky may have been better. I don't know, but I never got to work with him, unfortunately. All right, I have time for a couple more questions. Have I told Jakob that in person? No, I only say that about Jakob when people ask about him. When he asks me himself whether he's a great coach, I just start swearing at him and calling him an idiot. You know, we make fun of each other. What do I think about the Taimanov Sicilian? It's a great opening. I played it a lot for a while. Why is the old Indian so bad? Because it gives white the whole center and doesn't fight for it. Why isn't the Alekhine played at GM level? It's just not a great opening. You can certainly play it in rapid. I mean, it takes some effort to actually beat it. Like I think Jeffrey was playing it a bit and winning some games that he would never win in classical. I think that you can certainly play it in rapid, but in classical it's just not that great. I heard you're in the later stages of maybe retiring. Nope, false. I have still every ambition to get better. At some point I was 27-30. I do believe I'm not strong and that I fell for reasons that had nothing to do with my chess playing ability. I am very ambitious to get those rating points back, to get back on the horse. and I would very much like Real Chess to return soon. Do I coach myself? Yes, I do. I don't coach a ton, but I do have a few students that I work with. So yeah, I think we're just about out of time. I just want to put the link to all the Chessable courses that I spoke about today back in the chat once more, both here on Chess24, and I'll put them on YouTube as well. Yeah, so it was lovely to be here playing some Banter Blitz and answering some questions. And yeah, it was lots of fun. So will I update my sideline repertoire d5, b5? I'll do my best. All right. Thanks much, everybody. This has been fun.